and welcome to Men's Radio. Welcome to the ABC of CBD. I'm in a particularly buoyant mood, not only because I'm going to spend the next hour in the company of the great Ollie Mammon, who, before we started this series, apart from the weeks we spent putting it together, I'd never met and now become best buds.
I love him.
I'm really in a buoyant mood because today I had my COVID vaccination. So the only interruptions I'm expecting is when Bill Gates speaks to me directly in my brain. But apart from that, I should be okay. Anyway, this is week
19.
19. This
Episode 19.
I can't believe this.
It's incredible.
And it's been, for me, the most extraordinary learning curve. I came into this knowing, like I go through most of life, knowing absolutely nothing, and guided by Ollie Mammon. It's been just a wonderful experience. I've really thoroughly enjoyed it. Enough about me. Over to the host of the show, Oliver Mammon.
Yo, what's up, guys? So, interesting topic today. We're actually doing a critical review of the UK CBD market. Now, it wasn't something which was actually on my list of episodes because it's not really, like the negatives are not really something you would usually think about teaching someone about. You usually teach someone about the positive. You keep things optimistic. Okay, so now, unfortunately, today we're going for a little bit of a pessimistic view of the world and the market which we're working with. What we're going to do first is play the advert, and then I'm going to give a longer introduction. I'm sure you've heard before that good quality CBD needs to be really, really expensive. This is the new view of CBD. A product created by users for users. A product at an affordable price, available everywhere, at any time, at the simple click of a button. Just CBD and MCT oil. No additives, no preservatives, and no flavor enhancers. It's a simple subscription-based service. The cleanest possible CBD delivered to your door for the lowest possible price. Your product, your rights for the lowest possible price.
So cool. Such a cool ad.
Every time. Can't believe we're on week 19.
It's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. And I've got to say something, Ollie, which I haven't told you. This is one of the most popular shows globally on Men's Radio. The figures are cool. Astounding.
That's pretty cool.
Astounding. And the figures get better and better. And it was an experiment for you and I said, come on, let's just give it a go. Why not?
I can't believe we actually end up doing it. This is awesome, man.
And this is, I'm going to tell you something, the second most popular show on the entire station.
I tell you,
congratulations to you.
Thank you so much. But we're getting great views and we're getting great energy from people, and I'm getting questions and stuff on a weekly basis. And there's engagement, which is the most important thing. That's what we created here. We just want to help. That's what the aim of this platform is. Let me explain to you how we got onto this week's episode and why I've decided to bring this onto the table. The next 4 weeks coming are all going to be about farming in the UK and growing cannabis in the UK. But before we moved, you could say moved on to the next chapter, I wanted to kind of do an analysis. Now, what I wanted to do was focus on owning a retail CBD shop in the UK. And I wanted to kind of get an idea of how things have been through COVID, or, generally like what the, what the process was and how, how they've enjoyed it owning a CBD special shop. So what I did was I reached out to someone who I met around 4 or 5 years ago. The guy's called Erin Horn. He had a shop in Camden called London CBD. So I reached out to him because I know that London CBD has been around for a very long time. And I thought, you know what, who better to talk to than someone who's been doing this for 3 or 4 years. When I reached out to Erin, maybe a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, it turns out that he's no longer affiliated with the shop, which is completely cool. And he was like, look, his view of the market is not, everything so pro. And I was like, this is good. This is good content. This is another angle which we haven't covered yet. And it's another, another thought process which we might not think about. Now, the problem is I forget that not everyone's me. Now, I've got this relatively altruistic way of working because I need CBD for myself. So the whole process of why I create a product, it's products with a purpose, it's mathematical accuracy, it's I use the products which I make on myself. I make products for clients and loved ones. That's what happens. So my my entire process of manufacturing, my entire process of being involved in this industry is very personal. Now, so I forget that at the end of the day, this is a business, and I forget that there are other people involved in this world. Now, I've made a little list, and I've created this little concept. So if I'm not making sense, I'm sorry, but if I do make sense, it'll be good. So you've got almost like this iceberg. All right. Now you've got this iceberg, which is you call it the UK CBD market. Now, most of what's thrown in your face is the marketing and the advertising and a couple of these, really hot brands who seem to be everywhere, who seem to have a lot of coverage. Now that's 10% of the marketplace. And you see that, and you get the education from them, and you see the fact that there's, a trail of liabilities behind their product. They show you certificates of analysis. They show you manufacturing methods. They show you all the transparency which you need to believe in that product. And then there's 90% of the market. And the other 90% of the market, not on purpose sometimes, but they have been kind of caught up in the hype, okay, and they've been carried with this hype of CBD. And there are a lot of users out there who don't know how to identify what a good product is and what a bad product is. They don't know how to identify which products will work and which products won't work. So what we all do is we rely on our friends. And what do our friends do is they recommend their friends, because that's just what happens. Friends rely on friends for information, and friends usually recommend friends when that information is asked. So this market has got some pitfalls. It has some holes, which, to be honest with you, I don't think about. What I do is I think about making the best quality products, and I think about educating you. And I don't want to throw spanners in the works where it's like, actually there can be, pitfalls, and there can be issues with following other brands. There could be issues with not understanding products. Now, Erin brought this up, and I was just like, you know what? It's a good topic. I don't want to bring anyone down, because most people, I assume, they're not doing anything wrong out of malice. It's just miseducation. And what happens is you have this extremely lucrative, extremely exciting new marketplace, the UK cannabis marketplace. But everyone forgets that it's not about the product you make. It's about the person at the end of the product who uses it. And I feel like somewhere along the way, there have been a lot of people who have entered this marketplace not thinking about the fact that this is actually a needed product for so many people, and the efficacy, the transparency, the consistency, the reliability of the product is lost. And what happens is you end up with an end user who doesn't get satisfaction from a product. Now, what we want to do today is not demonize anyone and not target anyone, because no one's doing anything out of malice. But at the end of the day, the UK CBD market is only strong because of the patients and the end users who use this product. Without the end users, we're not a marketplace. Without the end users, we are nothing. And sorry.
And I could not have a more appropriate comment from one of our listeners about everything. It just sums up everything you've been saying. And this is just called serendipity. This is from Maureen Corona.
Love the name.
You must have suffered with that name in the last
world.
18 months. Anyway, Maureen, hi. Evening, gentlemen. Absolutely love this show. I'm now subscribed to Ollie's wonderful product. Okay. Have been taking it for the last few months. Changed my life. I'm off prescription medicine, morphine, etc. So thank you. So pleased I found this show, but more than anything, wonderful CBD oil.
Oh, amazing.
Ollie, you couldn't ask for something more heartwarming and special than that. Maureen, thank you so much. I'm glad that Ollie and the Tincture Club have been able to help.
So what we want to do today, okay, by the way, Maureen, that's amazing. What we want to do today is we want to kind of, I don't know, create a bit more of a conversation about what you guys need to what you guys need to watch out for. And the one thing which Erin's done, which I've never had to do, is sift through the marketplace to find viable products. When you open a shop, you need to find products for those shelves. And Erin had to go through that process. And to be honest, when he was telling me about the process he went through, it made me realize that, there is an issue here. I don't face that issue, so I don't think about it, but it's so important that it gets brought to light. So let's welcome in our guest. He's incredible, and I'm sure he's going to completely just take over the show. Before we start, look, you are not shy, okay? You are a very, very, very well-spoken, intellectual man. Introduce yourself, okay? Yeah.
I live up to that. Well, what can I say? Yes. Hello.
Pressure.
Yeah, the CBD journey that I've been on has been a really interesting one. And I think it's definitely the cannabis market at the moment. It's kind of an interesting time. GW Pharmaceuticals got sold, and that was a UK based company. It sold for sort of 5.5 billion UK.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
Huge amount of money. But
I'm
at the
sorry,
same
it
time,
sold for what?
£5.5 billion. And that's a UK based company that started in the late 90s with the first license to cultivate.
That happened in the last 2 days. It's like literally brand new news.
Holy moly.
So from sort of a journey where I, as just an individual who used cannabis, wanted to, in a holistic way, help people access it and sell it, and the kind of challenges that I saw and went through, and a lot of other people will have gone through, compared to a company that sold for 5 billion, because there are challenges out there in the marketplace as someone who wants to provide CBD or cannabis, and those challenges have changed. The goalposts have changed a lot since 4 years ago when we started the shop. Should say that I started it with my business partner Joe Oliver, who's still running it and selling great products, and he's testament to the amount of challenges there is with sourcing the best products, because I definitely helped start that process, but he took it on, and he's told me some crazy stories. Apart from, we were getting peppered with products at one point, from sort of starting and having to sniff out stuff or trying to create stuff ourselves. By the midway through, suddenly everyone wanted to make a product, and it wasn't obvious where it was coming from or what was in it,
where it was made.
There's been this huge journey, in the market, and it's really an interesting time to see that there can be people who can have a company in the UK that legally grows cannabis and sells for a lot of money, but still there aren't systems in place that kind of benefit smaller businesses or the end user, even though they may be attempting to put those things in place with the Novel Foods Act or these new THC laws. It does definitely seem that there's a kind of duality there in the system.
1,000,000%.
Which is part of the reason why in the end I kind of exited, because my whole vibe was like, I'm just a guy, I'm a musician. You can see, like, hey, cannabis is part of my journey. I can talk about it, I can intellectualize it, and I learned all the science. But if I'm honest, I haven't trained as a doctor. And I think that's a really challenging part. Even the message that you just had up is about somebody who's using a really strong painkiller and then CBD. And it's that challenge where you get put in this position where you're not a doctor, you can't make medicinal claims. You definitely can't make medicinal claims because of, all of the laws in place. But at the same time, a medical company in the UK sells for a huge amount of money and is obviously making medicine. So
it's also very important to, let's give a little bit of background. So GW Pharmaceuticals, like Erin said, was started in the late 90s. Okay, they are the only company, or up until recently, they were one of the only companies in the UK who were granted a cannabis license for more than just research purposes. And they were allowed to grow a full spectrum cannabis plant. So that contains THC, CBD, and all the other cannabinoids under the sun. A real cannabis plant. They also have license to...
They made Sativex. They were the manufacturers of Sativex.
So they also had the license to extract from their plant and create a cannabis licensed medicine, which is available to MS patients and stuff like that. So they were the first, and they are the only UK company who have ever been granted this opportunity. There is stories around GW that the original investors around it and the original founders of the company had affiliations with, individuals in government. And there have been many stories which have shown up over the last few years. It wasn't just by chance that this license was given out, but this company has just sold for £5.3 billion. There's also other laws coming in. So there's a new law which is being brought in by the Home Office. It is also in the last 2 days. Okay, so it's been a very interesting 2 days. You've got biggest producer of cannabis on the planet, sold for £5.3 billion. UK is bringing in laws that any cannabinoid extract which contains more than 0.0000001%, which is negligible THC, it could be deemed illegal in the UK. So what's just happened is you've got the biggest company has just theoretically got bigger, because that's what happens when companies get bought. And the network is tied into a pharmaceutical network with distribution affiliations across the world. So that's going to go huge. and the rest of us have just been potentially strangled. So overnight, you've got hundreds of people who are running, thousands of people who are running legitimate businesses where potentially overnight in the next month could be deemed completely illegal. Now, there's something going on here. Now, what happens to that end user? That end user now becomes monopolized. And that end user, that group of end users who have been relying on whatever brands they've been relying on, now can only go to one place. GW, because GW still has a license to sell a CBD-based product, Epidiolex, over the counter, okay, as a prescription medication. And if no one else is allowed to sell a CBD product, it's a very convenient way to kind of captivate the market, you could say, in a marketing way, and it's a very interesting time, like. I remember, look, when me and Erin first started about 4 years ago, we started on the journey at the same time. Okay?
Yeah, I remember we sat in the garden of the shop. It was a great meeting, we were kind of naive, full of dreams and new products.
And we were talking about MHRA regulation, and then next thing you know, within like 3 months of meeting, they basically banned the use of isolate in food stuff. Do you not remember that? And then everyone went full spectrum. And then it was like it was a very, very strange time where they were like, you can't use isolate. The Cannabis Trade Association, which we'll move on to a bit later, because I know Erin's got something to say about that.
I'm very pro everyone.
But yeah, like it's an interesting time where there seems to be this forgetfulness where people seem to be forgetting about the patients on the end, and people seem to be forgetting about these end users, and all of this business is happening. But what does that mean for people like me who need CBD, people like Erin who use CBD, people like you, Russ, who now use CBD to sleep? Like what happens to us when all of these changes come in? I feel like there's something not right, and I feel like it's been like this since the beginning. I just feel like I've just kind of bitten my lip. But like this industry is broken a lot of people. It's not easy, is it, Erin?
Well, I mean, it was a grey area. That was it. That's why we got involved, and it was definitely a grey area, and we had to carve it out. And that grey area has been closed down more and more with these new regulations and legislations that make it more challenging for small businesses. It is good to have a regulated system. I fully agree with that, and I think it's good. THC is a psychedelic compound. It's good to have some regulation around powerful compounds, but with that said, it puts more challenges, more blocks in place, and I saw that with the shop. It was a changing landslide of different information coming out and trying to catch up with it and work out how to make sure our products were legal, double checking with our suppliers the THC amounts, independently testing. It wasn't just as simple as like, hey, I'm going to start to resell a food product, which it was meant to be within, or a beauty product. But there are a lot of fences, and we really had a love for cannabis and personally used it. Like you said, it's a lot of users who ended up doing these businesses because they had such a passion for it. You
weren't a shop selling CBD. You were a CBD shop. All right. Let's go back in time a little bit. How was it, scouring the marketplace for all the brands and, picking which one you wanted to bring to your end users? Like how hard was that process? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, like I said, I was part of a team, and everyone in the team was sourcing products. So we had Joe was sourcing products, I was sourcing products, and we had some great support as well. And all these products would come in, and you'd kind of get the product, open the box, get a piece of paper, and some of them tasted like engine oil. And people would call you and talk to you and say, man, I've got this product. It's really better than anyone else's. And the more people wanted to tell me how great and different their product was, the more suspicious I got, because I was like, man, this is snake oil. Cannabis is a great snake. You squeeze it. The oil's good. You don't do anything special. Just make sure it's clean and it's from a cannabis plant.
Accurate. It's clean, as long as it's made properly. Exactly. There's no better or worse.
Science. And actually, my personal point of view is that if overly synthesizing or treating the plant can actually degrade the quality. I like full plant spectrum, kind of raw organic juice products that aren't heated or even too different from eating the plant, because that's where the medicine is from my point of view. So the more and more people would say, hey, we got this product, you know, this is amazing, it's this, it's been combined with that, we'd get suspect, and stuff would really taste like engine oil. I mean, a few things we were worried that we got poisoned. You know?
There is always that slight alcohol earthiness, and you're like, oh my God, this is interesting.
There's a natural balance, because obviously cannabis is, as a flavor and a terpene, is strong, and if it's a kind of hempy extract, it can be quite strong. But that obviously depends on decarboxylation, how you treat it, how you process it. There are lots of different ways to bring out the flavor. So at the beginning, it was the Wild West. We got loads of crazy products, and it was just wild, you know.
How did you decide who to stock originally? Like at the start, like how did you make your decision?
I think
because you making your decision as a stockist, it's the same thing as someone who walks into a shop and sees 1,000 products. Like, how do you make your decision? Like how would you choose what to give the people who came into your shop looking for the right thing?
It's the same way that you'd be choosing your products. You know, you go for quality, you go for something that you like and you can see a use in, and you try and price it so that it's affordable. You know, and you know, you obviously look at the supply chain, or how, if the individual selling it, you know, doing the work with you is reliable, if they have consistent information, if their business looks like it's been trading, they're not just sort of random person who's got a load of isolate and is mixing it in with stuff, you know. So it was a challenge, and we had to keep updating it, and definitely there were issues with certain suppliers, you know, and we had independent testing as well to make sure that everything was kosher, you know.
And what did you find, you know, being a CBD shop? Did you ever have the someone walks in, is like, I want the real stuff? Did you ever have that?
We had a lot of people coming in asking for a lot of stuff. We definitely had people who'd come in and say, you know, where's the cannabis? And we'd say CBD is cannabis, and they'd say, yeah, but and you know, and yeah, that's a certain type of person.
Erin, how were you able to deal with that, you know, politely? Were people going, no, okay, I get it, or did they sort of cut up a bit rough sometimes?
I wasn't on the front line too much, but I did a few shifts, and you know, we had great staff, so people would deal with it really nicely. And I think people would ask a few times, and then they'd kind of browse it and maybe try a bit and maybe walk away with a bottle, because it obviously still is cannabis and has, you know, from what I experienced, a lot of the therapeutic benefits of it. But obviously for kind of people who were interested in more of a drinking type scenario or smoking it, you know, it wasn't something. That's why the conscious decision that we made was never to sell the flower, because a lot of people sold CBD buds that were smokable. Yeah, we were very minimal with anything, you know, that was potentially health hazardous, you know, because obviously burning anything and smoking it isn't good for your health to burn it, and even
he's
vaping.
A purist. He won't burn it. He won't burn anything. It's kind of brilliant. I love smoking. Okay, I love it. It's like my favorite thing. I know Russ loves smoking cigars. I love smoking. There's something about the flame which makes me feel really cool, and there's something about my Zippo lighter which makes me feel really cool. I don't know what it is, but I do agree with you. It's terrible for my health.
Let's just say hello to a couple of our viewers all over the world. Angela Lee, hello to you. I'm sorry it took me ages to get back to you. And Angela's, I happen to know, is in the NHS and doing a fantastic job. Eve Phantom, crazy name, crazy gal. Good evening, Russ. Good evening to you, Eve. All right. We're back. Okay.
Fine. Just quickly, Erin, this is something which, so basically, look, you know me, I make everything myself, and I've always been about, you know, like products which actually work. And even though I've been inventive, it's always been inventive in that sort of therapeutic world. So I invent things like massage candles or bath bombs or things like that, which are a bit more therapeutically targeting, you know. When you first got involved in the industry, okay, at the start, it was mainly just tinctures and balms, all right? That's what it was. You know, there wasn't like the saturation in the marketplace of like CBD shampoos and drinks and gummy bears, and that it wasn't like that 4 years ago. Do you think that the market's kind of gone down a route of, I mean, now you stepped away, you can be critical, you know, like it's fine, no one's judging you. Do you find that maybe the market kind of lost its way? So when we first started, we got involved in CBD because, you know, we saw its capacity to help people. Do you not think it's kind of gone down a little bit of a fashion trend recently? Because I see some of these. Sorry.
I think you're right. I think anything that becomes hashtagable is people are just gonna put it on things and products and be like, hey, can I put CBD on my pillow? Because there was a CBD pillow. And I think, yeah, again, like you said, we were one of the first brands that did like massage oil and products that were slightly different and not just the oil. And seeing people utilizing it on things like pillows, or, you know, there has been some degradation of the brand as it proliferated and everybody wanted to try and jump on it and sell it, and it was available in the corner shop. You know, you'd find it in some sort of less classy or sort of lemon flavored, very strange versions of it, because people saw that there was a quick buck. But I think that was that's with any product, you know, that becomes fashionable. Suddenly everyone wants to jump on it, you know.
But do you not think it leaves a lot of our end users? It leaves a lot of the people out there who need this product kind of in the dark, because you know when you start.
Let me jump in, guys, if I may. This is on another screen. You won't be able to see this, and this is from a chap called Stephen Marsh. And it's really relating to exactly what you're both saying here. This is fantastic for Maureen, because I posted Maureen's comment on another page. I have a long-term health issue that I shan't go into detail about on this forum. I'm extremely tempted to ask Ollie to help me, but with the greatest of respect, I would feel wrong doing so without first taking advice from my GP and specialist.
A million percent.
And here's the crux of this, guys. And most GPs and specialists who hear the words medicinal CBD tell you to avoid it and stick with traditional prescription drugs. So I'm sort of stuck between the rock and the hard place, and that's from Stephen Marsh. It's really interesting.
It's really hard out there. I mean, like, it really, really is hard. Like I always say, I've said it from the very first episode, I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a dude who makes CBD products, and I'm a dude who originally started making products for himself, you know? And in a strange way, I feel like Aaron's very similar. I feel like he's just a dude who wanted to sell CBD. If he wanted to kind of take over the world, he wouldn't have left the business. Do you know what I mean? And there is this undeniable fact that CBD has become extremely commercial. And unfortunately, when things become commercial, efficacy can be lost just in the lights. You know what I mean? In the flashing lights.
Did you see, for example, now this is again, did you see the photo that I sent to you, Ollie? It was on my local little cafe.
Yeah, I like that CBD
and
tea.
there was CBD tea, and I just put no.
I kind of like that. I think that's cool. But then I tell you what it is.
I thought you were going to blow up and go, whoa.
Look, I hate CBD tea, but I like the fact that they're selling CBD. Do you know what I mean? In a weird way, I like the fact that more people, it's becoming non-demonized. All right, everyone's getting involved. I just wish everyone would get involved properly. That's kind of what I wish. It's like...
Yeah, it's a long game, isn't it? And I think there has been this sort of splurge to market with challenging products and all of these new regulations coming in, and GPs not sure whether people should use it or not and not advising it. But if we look at places like America, where it is legal, where people are using it, and there are great quality products, and, you know, I just hope that we can move towards that system and have some sort of, you know, regulation, legislation and medicinal use of it, you know, that can help benefit. Because that's really the end goal, is, like you said, for people who need it to be able to access it. I mean, we went on the journey of having to sort of build it for ourselves, you know, and helping others. That was like, I'm sure you had the same experience. People would just come to me because I'd say, oh, I'm using CBD now. And they'd say, oh, I heard of it. And this was like 5-6 years ago when I was first getting it. And I said, I'll get you some. And that was how it all started. And then I was like, oh, I'll mix it up because someone wanted it on their arm. I'm like, man, I'm going to mix you up this massage oil, you know. And that's a very basic way of it happening, I think. And that's a lot of the stories that I came across with the other good brands and good people who were making quality products had started for themselves and had a personal story, you know. And I had a friend who's a GP, and we kind of had a funny interaction where he said, oh, you started that CBD shop? And I said, yeah. And he was quite down on it. And, you know, it's I get it. I understand from a doctor's point of view.
What did he say to, Erin, what did he say to you when you say he was
just down on it? That's the point, is like, I fully respect doctors and I fully respect Western medicine. I think it's great, and I do think it can be sometimes you have to be very careful what you use alongside medicine, or if you have a condition, you need to work with a doctor and a GP. But I think what we're fighting against is that just kind of general culture of like, oh, CBD, like you don't want to have that or change to it. And it's like, cool, yeah, maybe you don't, but maybe you do, because maybe there isn't a problem with it maybe it might be a bit more like water, where, okay, drinking water isn't going to solve your leg injury, but man, if you're not drinking water and you've got a leg injury, it's going to be harder to solve it, and that, when you look at the body and the endocannabinoid system, how it funds the body, how it scientifically works, it's, it isn't, you don't want to call it a cure-all, but it helps your body be in the best state to cure itself.
Erin, a few weeks ago, Ollie finds the most amazing guests.
Yeah, I do well.
You are one.
You're also wonderful, Erin. You're also wonderful.
No, I'm saying you are one. Yes.
I like his hair. He has nice hair. He looks like a young version of
my
my dad.
You too. Anyway, look, our guest was 81 years old and been told that he had terminal liver disease.
Kidney failure.
Kidney failure. I beg your pardon. Kidney failure. And he said to the doctor said, well, it's terminal. You're not going to blah, blah. And he said, well, I'm thinking about taking CBD products. And the doctor said to him, you can't do that. It'll kill you. And he said, you just told me I'm going to die. This was his exact conversation.
The same thing happened with Tanines, sorry, go on, Aaron, go and talk. So I was just saying the same thing happened with Tanine Montgomery. She was saying about how, like her daughter's sick, and her daughter has epilepsy, and she uses Bedrocan from Holland, and she's there are difficulties for a lot of people at the moment, and they're kind of on this ticking time bomb that in July everything's going to stop. So it's a bit of a strange time for all of those mothers and fathers and children. And basically, she was talking about how her doctors don't, even though it's worked for them, they'll still kind of like push away from it. It's not like there's no support behind it. And Dr. Leon Baron, who came on the show maybe 10 weeks ago, the first thing he said is, doctors aren't getting behind this because there's no one pushing it. It's not part of the educational curriculum, and it's not part of the ethos yet. It's not part of the culture, and it's damaging. It's damaging because there are a lot of counter forces working against this market. Okay, like there's some from within and some externally. You've got the change in legislation. You've got doctors not really being pro it, which is completely fine because doctors are set in their ways. I understand it. And then you've got the government, which want to control it because they see it as very valuable. And then you've got end users who are trying to navigate themselves through this market. And if you think about it, it's all really pretty complicated. It's pretty hard, but it's still new. We're all learning to walk again. The first time you're a baby and you stand up and you go for those 3 steps and you fall straight on your face, it's difficult. You can't remember how difficult it was, but learning to walk is hard. It's what we're all kind of doing. We're all learning to walk again in this new world. But then we're all working against each other as well. And it's a bit strange. I just like, it's a negative view of the market, unfortunately. Like the forces don't seem to work. And there's something you said on the phone, Aaron. You said about how, like, there seems to be like not backstabbing, but just like you kind of have to look over your shoulder in this industry. People don't have your back. There's no camaraderie. And at the end of the day, the sad truth is as a UK CBD market, every manufacturer, every seller, every brand, every patient, we're one fist. We're all in this together. We are a unit. Now, what happens is when the unit decides not to work together, you're spread out. It doesn't work. So we need to be that unit. We need that camaraderie. And over and over and over again, I've seen people in this industry just destroy other people in this industry. And it drives me mental. Now, I've got a great platform here with like 2,000 listeners every single week. And you can go back over every single minute. I've never spoken badly about anyone in this industry. Never spoken badly about anyone, never tried to bring anyone down. But the problem is on a weekly basis, that courtesy is not shared. We get it all the time. Oh, you're that Ollie Mammon. I was like, yeah. From the radio show, they're like, no. You're that Ollie Mammon. I was like, oh God, what have you heard? Standard. It's just the industry. And you said it, Aaron. You said that, not to quote you said it brought the worst out of you. You said this industry brought the worst out of you.
Well, I think
people.
I think that it's not that the cannabis industry specifically or CBD. It's just, when you combine the factors we discussed, which is a new market without regulation, a lot of people trying to get involved very quickly, commercialization. I think that brings out the worst in anybody or any marketplace, and with those challenges of shifting boundaries. But I still think that there are good products out there that people can use them. There is some reliability. Obviously, these new regulations will make things more challenging, but I still think that there's a route into it for people. It was just for me personally, you know, my kind of dream was just to be, like you kind of said, just a guy, like a smaller, self-sufficient individual, place in Camden. That was a shop that I had. I wanted to grow it in the countryside and sell it there. And hey, it's just a normal thing, like tomatoes, you know? And that was my dream, and it kind of couldn't happen. And so, you know, I'm still hopeful that it will happen in my lifetime, you know, that we'll be able to just grow it and sell it like a crop, because it's great for the earth. It puts nutrients back in the soil. It helps with all these problems we have, economical, potentially mental health, even ecological.
And
so
if you look
all
at the
of
wider
these things,
picture, you can literally build a house from it, as we discussed last week. So I mean, it's an incredible plant.
Yeah, we're going to need it to kind of get out of the ecological challenge that we're in, because, you know, this plant even takes toxins and heavy metals out of the soil. So if you overuse the soil, hemp's a great plant to re-enrich the soil. So it's this broad base, and it's this kind of strange juxtaposition, but I'm hopeful that it will happen. And, you know, I think that, like you said, with the challenges of it, kind of the challenges turned people against each other, and it made maybe some of the smaller brands, it made people a lot more worried and scared and paranoid, because, you know, different people were experiencing different things. There was a cannabis kitchen in Brighton that was this great restaurant, and they got
dude. He's such a good dude. So I've reached out to him. I'm not going to say his name, because he didn't want to come on the show, and he said to me he didn't want to come on the show because of the amount of grief he's received. And I was just like, you poor dude. He went out.
Serious? He got grief.
So basically, this dude set up a shop in Brighton. Okay, it was a restaurant. And they literally treated him like they just destroyed his business.
It wasn't a kind of head shop, and he was selling lots of CBD flower.
He wasn't selling anything cannabis related. It was just food.
Yeah,
hang on, guys. For the uninitiated, which is me, because you obviously know this guy. Walk me through this. So he's got a restaurant, and the recipes include cannabis, I'm guessing here. I don't
CBD.
know.
Exactly.
CBD.
Exactly. Cannabis and CBD as a flavor and a compound to add in to, you know, get more CBD. It was like really beautiful, a great cultural offering, because that's what we wanted to do with the shop, more of a classy cultural offering to help this cultural push we have with the Daily Mail writing stuff like kids high on skunk doing crazy. It's a great headline, you know, and I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but that bombardment creates that fear and that disconnect where people who maybe could benefit
on the
from
sidelines and have a demonized view of the society might take a step back and be like, they are as bad as everyone says they are.
That's what we're fighting.
Two things. In fairness, though, first of all, let's just say hello over in Spain to Chrissy Holt.
Hi, Chrissy.
Who started to watch the show and then couldn't sleep properly, got some of Ollie's products, sleeping so much better. So another very happy listener and a happy customer. I too was very worried when this show was first presented to me as an idea. In fact, by my delightful business partner and co-founder of Men's Radio.
We love you, Howard.
Yeah,
Howard. We love you.
He's just a lovely man. And I said, well, you know, what's this Ollie bloke like? I don't want some hippie twerp on and, you know, and stoned off his face. I mean, that's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to deal with mental health and well-being. And
then he got me.
These were my own, and then I got him, and even worse. But Erin, because it's not part of my culture, and so the comment you make about the Daily Mail, totally take that on board. I get that. And when I'm walking my dog every day, every 100 yards, I'm either blown away by the smell of skunk. You know, I've got certain views in it. So this 19 weeks of education for me completely changed my mind, totally. But it's you know, this is like a one person at a time deal. It's difficult, you know.
Yeah.
And I admit, first of all, that, you know, I wouldn't have gone into your shop. I wouldn't have gone into your shop because I would have thought, oh, what is this? This is a drug den. Clearly, it wasn't. You know, now that I've met you, I can see what it's all about. Now, I would go into your shop, same as with Ollie, but it's an educational process, which Ollie is at the forefront of. He's in the vanguard of this educational process.
It's very important, but listen, like, unfortunately, nothing worth knowing is ever easy to know. Do you know what I mean? It's like everything worth knowing takes time to learn, and then sometimes you know, the most valuable things you've got to work for. And unfortunately, when something's completely fresh and novel and new and unspoken about, and there's not even a foundation of it in the back of your mind, it takes a long time to build up an understanding and a comfort around it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we're dealing with the power plant of the European continent. You know, this is a plant that comes from the base of Nepal 25,000 years ago, moved across the whole continent. You know, the first rope is made from hemp. That's how you domesticate a horse. The
first Bible was printed on hemp
25,000 years ago. You know, even before, like, this is an old use of a plant with peoples. You know, the Pope has a recipe for hemp soup, which is what they're doing the novel foods application on, right? You know, this is an old plant that we've used and we've grown around. It's intricately bound into our body, but there's this culture which has happened, which from what I understand is racist as well. If you look at the original Cannabis Act in America in 1937, it was racially motivated, and it's challenging.
Can you I've got to read something in a minute. Could you expand, because I don't know anything about that?
Go on, Aaron.
Could you expand on that, Aaron?
So one of the main reasons why cannabis is illegal is because of an act called the Cannabis Act, which was, you know, there may be some details, but it's in 1937 in America, it was passed. The people involved in passing it was a very well-known criminal, the KKK, and a number of other challenging cotton farmer groups were really wanted this to happen because the hemp farmers were overtaking cotton. So,
right.
and they were and that was also a racial angle, because a lot of the hemp farmers, you know, were coming from slavery, and the cotton farmers, you know, didn't want them to outperform their cotton farms, and they passed this anti-cannabis act. And that's the act that we still interact with. Even in the UK, we kind of base our illegality in part on that act, because, you know, Coca Cola had cannabis in it. A number of products had cannabis in it in the early 19th century.
Coca-Cola original recipe was cocaine.
Exactly. And a lot of the railways.
That's true. That's not a joke. That's absolutely true. The original was already.
Yeah, and then listen, like, if you look at every continent around the world, all right, whether it's Europe, or you want to go to Africa, or you want to go to what's it called? You want to go to Asia, or you want to go to the Middle East. Okay, every single continent at some moment in history has built its empire based on this plant. So you've got the whole King Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Okay, you ever heard the term smoking Sheba? All right, they call it smoking. Or anyways, it's another term for smoking cannabis. It's like a 60s, 70s term, you know, but the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon had this unity around 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago. And hemp was basically what brought them all together, hemp and frankincense. And that's what kind of made the two kingdoms so strong. As in, it's been used for thousands of years everywhere. And then the medicinal applications have also been used. The strange thing is it's been used for more time than it hasn't been used. And that's what everyone needs to kind of understand, that for 5,000, 6,000 years, everything was all right. And for 70 years, everything's been a bit strange. And then what we're going to do now is there's going to be maybe another 5 or 10 more years of strangeness, and then we're going to go back to where we were.
Your point about skunk's important, because we talk about the history of the plant, and we're talking about a natural plant that naturally is going to have more like 10% THC, 90% CBD, or even less THC and more CBD. So you're looking at a mostly CBD plant, not mostly THC. Now, start going through the prohibition process, which is when alcohol, you get super strong alcohol, moonshine, people would go blind from drinking it. Cannabis is the same thing. It's been bred THC dominant to be super strong. And you have this issue then that if you have less CBD, which is potentially antipsychotic and helps balance the CBD, you have a plant which can cause more problems. And like you said, people can use it in a negative recreational way, especially early in the morning in public places. I find very challenging. It's a bad culture. And like you said, I fully think when you're walking your dog and people are putting those smells in your face, that's not a good culture. And that's potentially
it's not a good culture. And you know, I see them parked up. I'm down by the river. I see them all parked up and all off their faces, and I'm going, that is so not what the ABC of CBD and all his guests is about.
That's the funny thing.
Let me read something. Let me read a couple of things out, because we need your input on this. This is from Lee Durnford, Ollie. You remember Lee from last week?
Yeah, Lee's the one who's basically going to make Jamie a billionaire, right?
Lee Durnford says, hiya.
10%.
I still need to contact Oliver on behalf of my daughter. I'll email tomorrow, Ollie.
Perfect.
On another subject, the hemp details I received after last week's show have been passed on to my global sustainability lead and a few others.
Amazing.
Wowzer. Lee, thank you so much.
Really,
much.
thank you so much. He's such
Now,
a good dude, and he's so
I
knowledgeable.
told you he was a lovely guy. I told you last week he was a lovely, charming
No, but
man.
I'm saying Jamie's also a lovely guy, and he's super
Yeah.
knowledgeable. So I mean,
Jamie
it's a good partnership, man, and you've got a really great partnership there.
Chrissy Holt from Spain says, I think I know the answer to this, and it's no, but she's asking in all good faith, is cannabis still in Coca-Cola? Is that why they get so hyper drinking it? I can't stand it. No, it's the sugar. Well, I can only answer part of it. No, it's the sugar, like any fizzy drink that turns the kids so they're bouncing off the wall.
However, Coca-Cola are, and they have been in discussions for the last 2-3 years, discussing bringing out a CBD or THC beverage in America. So I mean, the logic is for them to bring back, it's basically do full circle and come back to market. And as soon as Coca-Cola get involved in the cannabis industry, it's legal everywhere in the world. Like they sell something like, I think 600 million bottles of Coke a week or something ridiculous like that. They've worked out. It's something insane. Yeah. So I mean, the best addiction on the planet. I don't drink Coke. I don't drink Coca-Cola, but I mean, it's. I used to, like 6 cans a day. Now, fine. Can I ask Erin a question? I think this one might be important.
Your show, of course.
Fine. So we talked about something. We talked about vulnerable users. Now, as someone who ran a shop, you have an interaction with the end user. One thing which I haven't really had, except for the people who have contacted me and reached out to me over the course, and like at the start I had a lot more, is access to end users. Now, most people who walk into your shop will end up becoming repeat customers because you form a relationship with them or whatever. They are vulnerable, aren't they? As in, like they're dependent on kind of your direction. I've felt it before, with a lot of patients. With all the information out there, you'll go on the internet and you'll read, and most of the time you'll read 6 articles and you'll come out with 13 different opinions. Do you understand what I mean? The information is very conflicting. Some people say use THC, some people say use CBD, some people say this, some people say that, and what happens is a lot of people are very loyal to their opinions. So it's not about what you need, it's about what I think you need. And very often that's what I found in the marketplace, is that most, we call them patients, won't get great advice from other patients. It just doesn't happen. Like, what did you find? Did you find that, did you find a lot of people are kind of left in the dark, even with all the information available out there?
So people came in very, very low on information. I'm very interested to learn and to try. And I think one of the great things me and the team did was provide that space. So people would come in that they were like Russ said, maybe a bit scared, like, what is this? Is this a headshot? We had it real classy and great staff. We really went with a sort of female energy tried to employ this female staff. And they would come in and they'd get a chance to try it, a good quality product, and have a chat about it. And that if someone has a few drops of a good quality product, after they might even feel it within 15 minutes, half an hour, if they haven't eaten much and they leave it in their mouth for a minute. So people would kind of have a bit of an education, and I think that was an important part of it. But people were definitely vulnerable, because anybody who you're trying to show something new to, there's an element of vulnerability, because you could take them down the wrong path. And that was one of my challenging parts of it, was I would get phone calls from people with very serious health complications. And that wasn't just from the shop, that was probably more from people
personal life. Yeah, it's more friends of friends, isn't it? Yeah,
more friends of friends. And it would be it was sad, because it would be sort of friends of friends, and their elderly relative would have terminal cancer. A number, this happened a few times, and they would have finished. They would be kind of at the end of a rope and say, look, my painkillers aren't working, chemo's not working, I've read about this, I'm on my last legs. It was very sad, as somebody, who's not trained, and, it was a challenging position to be in. And that is the challenging position of the UK stance on cannabis, is that those people are potentially missing out, from a painkiller, from a more therapeutic.
And they need to hear it from their doctor, don't they? As in, those people shouldn't have to come to us, Yeah,
but there needs to be more testing. We're lacking testing. There hasn't been enough testing on cannabis generally, let alone CBD. There just hasn't been that investment. If you look at a lot of other compounds, there's been the money there, but because of these issues with, licensing, there just hasn't been enough testing and enough medical data for people to hang a hat on. And so you
other
have
countries, other countries have been doing it. So Israel's been doing it, and America, they started. But I mean, but here the problem is information is not really being shared internationally. Once again, the cannabis community is very, very separate. But at the end of the day, if companies are selling for £5.3 billion based on IP, you're not really going to be sharing your IP with the rest of the world, when now you're kind of going to be worth the same amount as, well, the richest people on the planet. So that's number one. But you've got this. Callie Seaman brought this up, Dr. Callie Seaman. You remember her, Russ? Okay, like genius woman. She's
Absolutely,
got a great brain on her
clearly.
stuff. I like she's incredible. And she brought us up about how there's a lack of research and how there's a lack of tangible evidence. And even though we've got users now in the UK, not one of them is told to fill out a questionnaire on a weekly basis just to gather research on how this product's working for them. No one is being followed up by their doctors. If they are, it's all private care clinicians who just want to get you in, prescribe you, get you out, move on to the next person. It's not really, the system's not there. You've got people like Professor Nutt who are doing this 2021 thing, which I think is incredible, and they will have many patients on the roster, and that's what Tony now gets his medicine. That's where Tony Bevington, who we had on the kidney kidney failure sufferer.
Yes.
So he now gets his product through that and through drug science. Now, the problem is we have information, okay, because we've learned and we've listened and we've spoken and we have this information. This information shouldn't be in our heads. It should be in the heads of doctors. It should be on computers somewhere. As in, there needs to be a compilation. And also, what needs to happen is that camaraderie that I was speaking about before, it needs to extend outside the CBD market to other areas of the cannabis space. There's no reason why these brand new cannabis companies shouldn't be working with an industry which has already been there, just to try and data gather. If it's only for the accumulation, if it's only for research cumulative purposes, just for education. And that's what I don't understand. It's like why are we not doing this properly? It's like, do you understand what I mean? Like, it was what you said on the phone about government interaction and about how there's not enough of that cradling from above to kind of make this industry a real industry for its users. You brought it up on the phone, Aaron. You were talking about how
one of the main issues that anyone would have had is that you can't use 90 out of 100 or 98 out of 100 banks won't take your business. No landlords will rent, give you a lease. It's very challenging to get investment. So it's not specifically that I'm not a conspiracy theorist and I get on with my life. I'm not sort of thinking that people are doing this in spite, but what happens is that there definitely isn't a push to help. So I get that people are scared and the government feel they need structures, and that's valid, but it's great to support business in the UK. It's great to look at sustainable business that can be grown in the UK, that can be farmed here, to have industry here that we can use, potential medicines, all these potential outcomes. That would have been great. And what I kind of found was this wasteland of shifting boundaries and challenging individuals, because what you get if you make it a challenging business is challenging people coming into it. So people were coming in and it's like Mad Max, right? You have these
being
people,
as disruptive as possible.
Yeah, because it's a crazy place. You get crazy people. I definitely met people from other places who are involved in other things, and it's a funny world. So it was a bit challenging.
It's not dissimilar, and I'm not just saying this because I can see the drums and everything behind you and the guitar, but it's not dissimilar to certain aspects of the music industry,
the music industry is far worse. Absolutely abhorrent.
It is much worse. The worst mistake I ever made in life was going into it.
Exactly.
Getting the other live.
It's terrible.
My business partner Nathan, I love him. He came from a property background, and his exact words to me were, "Never dealt with people like this before." I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, it's like you don't know where you stand. You never know where you stand. Like in any capacity, you never know. You don't know where you stand with the government. You don't know where you stand with your customers. You don't know where you stand with your suppliers. There is no stability in anything. And all we try and do is do our best. But the market, it's like, from a capitalist perspective, I mean, like, the amount of money the UK government can make if they control this market properly is astronomical.
And hopefully that's the driving force, because
But
as it becomes more and
they're
more
so
apparent,
late to the market. They're so late.
yeah,
to the
but
market.
we were late with the COVID lockdown. You know, they're late with things. But in the end, listen, you know, money talks.
So, and bullshit walks. Aaron, here's a question for you. This recent sale a couple of days ago for 3.2 billion? 5.3 billion. I can't get my head around it. Will that not have the knock-on effect of people going, wait a minute here, this is one hell of a lot of money, we should look at this more professionally? You know, it's not a couple of people sitting in the back of a BMW giving out drugs for 100 quid.
Nostradamus moment, prediction. Pharmaceutical companies are about to start buying up cannabis companies like absolutely crazy. Not going to be a good thing. Because what happens when heart and soul are corrupted, okay? When heart and souls are corrupted, they no longer become hearts and souls. You know, you can't think with a corrupted heart, and you can't, you know, do good things with a corrupted soul. And I mean, that's the issue. That's what I like. That's my little Nostradamus moment. I think everything's about to just turn really bad.
But listen, like my point earlier is the product itself, cannabis, is, from my experience, super therapeutic in a very simple way. If it's grown organically, and it doesn't need to be overly processed or synthesized. And obviously with pharmaceuticals, they're looking to find something unique, distinct, you know, maybe isolated, that they can take and own, whereas it's exactly. And
of course,
you know, that's part of the issue with where we're at with the plant, because it's very therapeutic in its natural state, you know, so therefore it's hard to kind of cast a net around it. And
the problem is there seems to be a shift over to synthetics, which is another thing which I want to kind of drop before this is ending. You know, this whole movement, you know, like, so plant cannabis, plant derived cannabis, phytocannabinoids, they are what we've built this entire market on. And there is a huge shift at the moment towards synthetic cannabinoids. Synthetic cannabinoids are not what the millions of people around the world who have used CBD in the last 5 years and received benefit from, that's not what they have been using. They have been using plant-derived CBD. So what happens is you have this huge push at the moment, like David Beckham just invested like 20 million pounds into a UK-based synthetic cannabinoid manufacturer. Now, it's great, because what happens is more people are getting involved in the industry. It's the wrong part of the industry. Because if money goes, wherever the money goes, the power will go. That's just what happens. And the money's not going towards the money's not going towards the patients. You know, the money's not going towards them getting what they've been relying on. The money's going towards the future. But we're in the present, and the present's working for people. So why think about the future? You know, why change what's working now for something which might not work in a few years' time? And it's the synthetic argument, which it seems to be coming up in the...
Yeah, the synthetic argument and the strength argument is dangerous, because, you know, the studies that they have done have showed that a full plant extract, or something that, you know, less is more, less and regularly is more than strong and once, you know, and this kind of synthetic high strength stuff that has more damages to the body and more toxicity, essentially.
Of course, you know, a lot of the... Sorry, carry on.
No, one of the most aggressive drugs that went through the UK was a synthetic cannabinoid called Spice, which is synthetic THC, and that's still ravaging on people and people who have addiction problems, you know, and that's a synthetic cannabinoid. So I agree, synthesizing anything that occurs in nature has to be done very carefully, respectfully, before it's just because it works coming out of a plant. It's
also the thing.
I have an important question for because we're running out of time. Well, not yet. I have a very important question for Erin. When COVID is finished and we're allowed to mingle, please, can I come round and play your drum kit?
You totally can, definitely. Do you play? Are you a drummer?
Yeah, I am.
Nice.
Not particularly brilliant, but I've been drumming since I was 14. I'm sorry, but I've been sitting here the whole show looking at that going, oh man, look at that kit.
That's it. Literally, I came on, he gave a drum roll. The moment I was like, blow my ears out, man. It was insane. Insane.
Sorry, I'm sorry. That was a slight diversion.
Listen, it's been a real pleasure talking to you guys.
Well, we've got a little time yet. Well, we're kind of final minute. I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show. Ollie, You always dazzle us with the guests that you.
I know some cool
find.
people, man. I'm like
well, ridiculously cool people, and they're all incredibly knowledgeable, and they all come at it. And every single week I sit here, and every single week I learn something, and I know the audience is benefiting greatly. So
thank you everyone for listening, by the way.
I really, all over the world, I really, really do appreciate
Listen, listeners and guests, the only people who make this show. Without you guys, it's just me and Russ chatting. So, I mean, thank you to all of the guests, and thank you to you, Erin, for today, but thank you to every guest we've had, and thank you to all of our listeners, because you guys are awesome.
This has
thank you,
been
Russ.
the AB of CBD with Ollie Mammon and Erin Hall. Thank you, Horn. Thank you so much. See you next week. Bye-bye.